Hey everyone, it's Unishek here, and today we're going to be covering the entire Halo storyline extremely quickly. I went over this video with some of the most hardcore Halo fans out there, and we made sure to cover as much as possible in as short of a time as possible. So without further ado, let's get you guys ready for Halo 5 Guardians. The Halo games are set about 500 years in the future. In the 2500s, humanity has now been exploring the stars for close to 300 years, and has established colonies on 800 different planets. However, organization starts to splinter, and Earth begins losing control of these worlds and is on the brink of civil war. In order to prevent the full-on outbreak of war, a scientist for the UNSC, United Nations Space Command, named Dr. Catherine Halsey, came up with the idea of creating a group of soldiers to bring stability to human-occupied space. This idea became known as the Spartan II program. The candidates were young children ages 4 to 6 who were kidnapped, indoctrinated, and raised as soldiers from this very young age. They were then surgically, genetically, and cybernetically enhanced once they reached physical maturity. Their unnatural augmentation procedures would kill or cripple 42 out of 75 of the trainees. The remaining 33 Spartan IIs were fitted with Mjolnir armor, which vastly improved their already superhuman strength, speed, agility, reflexes, and durability. These soldiers quickly became the most effective weapon against the rebelling colonies. While fighting the rebellion, humanity encountered an even larger threat, an alien civilization known as the Covenant. Their superior technology and weaponry allowed them to wipe out entire planets with ease, and they would only stop when all of humanity was extinct. The Covenant advance would only slow when they were challenged by Spartans, who never lost a single battle while fighting on the ground. This is where the games begin. Chronologically, the order is Halo Wars, Halo Reach, Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3 ODST, Halo 3, and Halo 4. In 2552, the aliens advance on the UNSC's largest military stronghold, Reach, the second most populous human planet, second only to Earth. The UNSC fended off the Covenant for weeks, but Reach would eventually fall. The game Halo Reach follows the story of Noble Team, a 6-man special operations team which consists of 1 Spartan II and 5 Spartan IIIs, who went through a revived continuation of the Spartan program. Noble Team fights against all odds to obtain many ground victories in order to hold off the Covenant onslaught so that civilians can escape from the planet's surface. Their last mission is to retrieve the artificial intelligence known as Cortana and bring her to the human ship, the UNSC Pillar of Autumn, before it leaves Reach's surface as well. All but 1 member of Noble Team gives up their life in order to ensure that the Pillar of Autumn escapes with Captain Keyes, Cortana, and the Master Chief. During their escape, Cortana sent the Pillar of Autumn into a slip space jump to a random point in space that she had deciphered from ancient alien ruins found in one of her encounters with the Covenant. This is where the game Halo Combat Evolved begins, the first one in the series. On the run from the Covenant, the Pillar of Autumn now emerges from their slip space jump right in front of a Halo-shaped ring world. Unbeknownst to the humans, the Covenant were waiting on the other side of the planet already. They attacked the Pillar of Autumn, firing upon the UNSC spacecraft, forcing it to land on the Halo. Once there, the human soldiers coordinate an effective resistance against the endless barrage of Covenant attacks. During one of these attacks, the Master Chief sneaks on board the Covenant cruiser called the Truth and Reconciliation and rescues a captured Captain Keyes. During his incarceration, Captain Keyes overheard that Halo is both a weapon and a religious artifact to the Covenant. In order to learn more about Halo, the Master Chief goes on a solo mission to Halo's map room as well as its control room, where Cortana eventually discovers that Halo was made by an ancient alien race known as the Forerunners, whom the Covenant worship as gods in the pursuit of their great journey. After Cortana downloads this wealth of knowledge, she tells the Chief to regroup with Captain Keyes and Sergeant Johnson since they are in extreme peril. But unfortunately, Master Chief is too late and discovers evidence of a battle between Johnson and Keyes against the Flood, a parasite as old as the Forerunners themselves. Keyes would later be lost to the Flood. Upon learning that the Flood have been released, 343 Guilty Spark, a Forerunner AI, comes and helps the Chief locate Halo's key, known as the Index, and activate Halo's weapon defense systems in order to help eliminate the Flood. Right before Master Chief fires Halo, Cortana intervenes and explains that Halo obliterates all living things in the entire galaxy. So in other words, Halo's stopped the Flood by starving it, by killing everything else in the galaxy. Rather than destroying humanity and all other life in the galaxy, like 343 Guilty Spark wanted, Master Chief decides to blow up the crash-landed Pillar of Autumn by setting off its fusion reactors. Before the detonation of the UNSC ship shatters Halo, Master Chief escapes and begins his long trek back to Earth, and Halo 2 begins. The Covenant elite who is responsible for protecting the Halo that Master Chief destroyed is publicly shamed by the three Covenant leaders, or prophets, known as Truth, Mercy, and Regret. Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson, who also escaped from Halo, were awarded for their valor, but were immediately called back into action because the Covenant had discovered Earth's location. After the initial wave of Covenant attacks were repelled, the Master Chief chases one of the prophets with Commander Keyes, Captain Keyes' daughter, only to discover another Halo ring. While the Master Chief is pursuing the Prophet Regret, the disgraced elite commander Thel Vadami is offered a chance at redemption as the Arbiter. Arbiters are sent on suicide missions in times of desperate need and are expected to die as a martyr for the Covenant. His first suicide mission is to kill a rebelling elite who claims that the prophets, or holy leaders, are lying about this great journey. It's important to note that during this raid, the rebelling elite also breached a flood containment facility and released the flood parasite. Now jumping back to Master Chief's story, he finally catches up and kills the Prophet of Regret, which makes the Covenant believe that elites were no longer fit to protect the prophets, so this role is passed on to the brutes. Now jumping back to the Arbiter storyline, he's sent on yet another suicide mission, but is later betrayed by Tartarus, chieftain of the brutes, and sent falling into the clutches of the Gravemind, who also captured the Master Chief during his escape after the assassination of Regret. The Gravemind is the combined consciousness of the entire flood segment that has been spreading around, so it's the brain. In order to preserve itself, the Gravemind enlightens Arbiter on the true purpose of Halo as a weapon and sends him and the Master Chief to prevent the Covenant from firing this new Halo ring. In his pursuit of the other two prophets, the Master Chief witnesses the Prophet of Mercy being attacked and infected by the flood, leaving only one remaining prophet, the Prophet of Truth. Tartarus tries to use a captured Miranda Keyes to activate the Halo ring, but is stopped by Sergeant Johnson along with the Arbiter. As Master Chief leaves to chase the Prophet of Truth, who's on his way to Earth to activate all the remaining Halo rings, Cortana stays behind to make sure the flood do not escape and spread further throughout the galaxy. This is where Halo 3 begins. Back on Earth, Master Chief escapes from the Forerunner keyship by jumping out of it as it's entering Earth's atmosphere. He is retrieved by Sergeant Johnson, who's accompanied by the Arbiter, and they engage Covenant ground forces in order to eliminate the anti-air defenses. At this point, we realize that the Covenant are digging up a huge Forerunner artifact in the middle of the African continent. This artifact turns out to be an enormous slip space portal, and as if things weren't crazy enough, the Flood that were released in Halo 2 overrun a Covenant cruiser and crash land it into Earth, bringing the parasitic infection to the home front. Chief battles through the Flood in order to retrieve a message from Cortana which says that an even larger Flood invasion is on its way to Earth. Cortana also tells him that he must go through the portal in order to go to the Ark and stop the Flood once and for all. The Ark is a Forerunner installation which could activate every single Halo throughout the galaxy. The Master Chief and Arbiter, along with 343 Guilty Spark, now make their way to the Ark and find that they must disable 3 different shield generators, but lose contact with Sergeant Johnson, who is in charge of taking out the third and final shield generator. As soon as Master Chief picks up the slack and disables the third shield generator, a flood-infested High Charity comes smashing down into the Ark. But now at this point, the Flood, knowing that the activation of every Halo ring is imminent, decide to work with Master Chief and the Arbiter in order to stop Truth from firing the entire Halo array. Once they reach the Ark's control room, Miranda Keyes is found dead at the hands of the Prophet Truth, and this partially infected Truth is promptly executed by the Arbiter. Once the activation has been halted, the Gravemind turns the Flood against our two heroes, forcing them to flee the control room. Now on the run, Chief and Arbiter learn that the Ark has been producing a replacement Halo, Installation 04B, to replace the one that he destroyed in Halo Combat Evolved. Together, they decide that the best course of action to take against the Flood would be to fire the replacement Halo, but they need the Index, which is in the digital hands of Cortana, who's at the crash-landed High Charity. After journeying to the center of the crash-landed High Charity, Master Chief retrieves Cortana, overloads its engines, and then destroys the Gravemind. As the Arbiter, Chief Cortana, and Sergeant Johnson attempt to activate this new but unfinished Halo, 343 Guilty Spark kills Johnson and blasts Arbiter out of the control room. Master Chief in turn destroys the monitor and activates the Halo in order to destroy the incomplete ring, the remaining flood, as well as potentially the Ark. The Spartan and the Elite now race towards the UNSC ship forward onto Dawn and fly it back into the portal through which they came. The front half of the ship along with the Arbiter make it back to Earth successfully, but the back half with Cortana and John entered the portal just as it was closing and are sent into an unknown part of space. John goes into a cryogenic sleep and tells Cortana to wake him when he's needed. Halo 4 begins with the Forward Unto Dawn being scanned and sucked into an artificial planet constructed by the Forerunners, called Requiem. Once John regains consciousness after the crash landing, Cortana reveals that she is beginning to malfunction and deteriorate, so together they vow to make it back to Earth, find Dr. Halsey, and have her fix Cortana. But in order to do so, they realize they must find a communication system and send a message out to the UNSC. When trying to contact the nearest ship, the UNSC Infinity, the Master Chief unknowingly frees the Didact, a Forerunner, from his imprisonment. The Didact happened to be the supreme commander of the entire Forerunner military, who also has a deep-seated hatred for humanity, but we'll get to that later. At this point, it's also important to note that the Covenant on this planet decide to fight as part of the Didact's forces, revering him as a god. Since the Chief was unable to warn the UNSC Infinity that it would get sucked into the planet's gravity well, it too crashes on Requiem and has to fight off Covenant and Forerunner forces. On his way towards the Infinity, the Chief meets Commander Lasky and a group of Spartan force who tell him that he must continue fighting his way back to the Infinity as well as get the ship up and running again. Once this is done, the UNSC pushes back the alien forces and decides to destroy the gravity well that is holding them there on Requiem. While eliminating Forerunner defense systems around this gravity well, the Master Chief is contacted by the living memory of a Forerunner known as the Librarian, who is also the Didact's wife. This is where a lot of people get lost, so please pay attention because she explains why the Didact hates humanity along with his evil plan for the rest of Halo 4. Over 100,000 years ago, humanity had established a vast human empire spanning across thousands of worlds. These ancient humans were so advanced and powerful that they could practically go toe-to-toe with the Forerunners. However, that all changed when the first flood outbreak began to wipe out human worlds. In an attempt to escape the flood, the humans resorted to attacking Forerunner worlds. After a long and violent war, the Didact finally defeated humanity and left the remaining primitive population back on Earth. Unfortunately, because these Forerunners were now weakened from the human Forerunner war, they would be no match for the flood that were about to attack them. Before the Forerunners activated the Halo array and destroyed themselves along with the flood, the Didact used the machine known as the Composer on a portion of the now vulnerable human race, then hit on Requiem where he would eventually be forced into his cryptum by the Librarian. The Composer is a machine that converts the mind of a living being into a digital format. The Didactmen took these digitized human minds and placed them inside War Machine bodies, which would become known as Promethean Knights. The Librarian warns Master Chief that now that the Didact has been released, he will try to use the Composer on all of humanity. She then gives the Chief an immunity to the Composer so that he can actually fight the Didact. After this conversation with the Librarian, the UNSC finally destroys the gravity well. The Master Chief regroups on board the UNSC Infinity and explains that they need to stop the Didact before he can obtain the Composer. But the captain of the ship, Captain Del Rio, decided that it would be better to leave and inform Earth rather than fight the Didact here on Requiem. Chief disobeys these orders and chooses to go lone wolf in an attempt to stop the Didact from even leaving Requiem and obtaining the Composer. While the Chief doesn't succeed in preventing the Didact's escape, he does board a Covenant ship which follows the Didact to another Halo ring with the Composer at a nearby UNSC research base. The Didact retrieves the Composer and tests it on the scientists on board the research station, but Master Chief is able to survive because of the enhancements that were given to him by the Librarian. Continuing his pursuit, the Master Chief takes a nuclear bomb and then piggybacks the Didact's slipspace jump back to Earth where the UNSC Armada is waiting for them. The Infinity blasts a hole in the Didact ship allowing John to enter, but even though Master Chief is now on board the ship, the Didact activates the Composer and begins digitizing humans on Earth. The Master Chief finally reaches the Didact but is completely outmatched until Cortana, nearing the end of her life, restrains the Didact, allowing the Chief to hit him with a pulse grenade which sends him flying into a slip-space rupture beneath the Composer. In one final effort to save humanity, the Master Chief manually detonates a nuclear bomb at point-blank range. Using the last of her strength, Cortana protects the Chief and they have an emotional farewell as Cortana says goodbye and disappears. This is where Halo 4 ends and Halo 5 begins. While we don't know too much about Halo 5 Guardians storyline, we know that it takes place 8 months after the events of Halo 4. Due to the collapse of the Covenant, the Elite's homeworld of San Helios is in a state of civil war, and the Arbiter is trying his best to keep his people together. While that's happening, human colonies from all across the galaxy are falling out of contact because of the mysterious appearance of these gigantic Guardians. We also know that the Master Chief and his old team of Spartan 2s, known as Blue Team, are working with the UNSC at the start of the campaign, but eventually choose to go AWOL, and at this point, Agent Locke and the rest of Fireteam Osiris, a group of Spartan 4s, is tasked with finding them. I hope this video helped you get caught up to speed with Halo's wonderful storyline. I put a lot of work into this, so if you did find it helpful, please leave it a like and consider sharing it with friends. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.